Mexico's cartels have gone from being mere drug-running gangs into paramilitary forces with drones and state-of-the-art weapons. Their booming firepower has outgrown traditional security responses, forcing the United States to test advanced military systems reserved for global crises. Washington is currently experimenting with tools designed to cripple cartels before they strike. But is it really necessary to use heavy weaponry against criminal networks? And how far is the U.S. willing to go in the Mexico's drug war? Join us as we unravel how the U.S. is testing a secret anti-cartel weapon that Mexico is afraid of. As violence has continued to rise in Mexico year after year, criminal groups have adopted an increasingly militarized approach to their tactics, weaponry, and training. Some of Mexico's most formidable cartels are locked in a vicious arms race on multiple fronts. On one side, they are battling the Mexican government, which is under intense pressure from the United States to crack down on the drug trade. On the other hand, they are also fighting one another for territory and resources, leaving a deadly toll among their members and the civilians caught in between. Now, President Trump has ordered the Pentagon to begin using military force against certain drug cartels designated as terrorist groups. The directive has infuriated Mexico's leaders, who have rejected the idea of U.S. forces on Mexican soil. But despite their disagreements about what actions to take, officials and security analysts in both countries agree that cartels are amassing new levels of firepower, transforming some groups into full-fledged paramilitary forces. Cartel gunmen and drug smugglers no longer use mere handguns or automatic rifles, but have developed into using claymore landmines, rocket-propelled grenades, mortars built from gas tank tubes, and armored trucks mounted with heavy machine guns. They are bearing improvised explosive devices to kill their rivals and modifying drones bought online to make attack drones, loaded with toxic chemicals and bombs. Like other armed groups around the world, the cartels combine old and new weapons to deadly effect. Drones circle overhead in Michoacan, while roads and footpaths used by soldiers and civilians alike are seeded with IEDs. Over the past 2 years, the state has recorded more mine explosions than anywhere else in Mexico, a chilling marker of the drug war's evolution, experts say. Dozens of farming villages are caught between the shifting front lines of gangs and security forces. They are cut off from their lemon and avocado fields tucked deep in the hills. Many have no phone service, effectively leaving them to fend for themselves. When the fighting nears, most residents have no choice but to flee, sometimes for weeks or months. Some never even return at all, leaving towns deserted. In nearly 2 years, more than 2,000 people have been displaced in Michoacan, rights groups say. Those who stay risk being trapped in the crossfire. In the past 5 months alone, at least 10 civilians have been killed by hidden explosives while tending crops or walking to school, according to Julio Franco, an advisor with the Human Security Observatory, a group tracking violence. Security analysts and Mexican officials say the cartels began to militarize in the mid-2000s, when Los Zetas, a group formed by former army members, brought battlefield discipline, encrypted communications, and heavy weaponry to organized crime. As Los Zetas acquired more of a military arsenal, so did its rivals trying to compete. Mexico's security forces, too, responded with ever more sophisticated equipment and tactics. The United States has also brought its own technology to bear, including by recently using drones that hunt for fentanyl labs. In 2015, a sign of the transformation underway became evident when cartel gunmen in Jalisco state brought down a Mexican army helicopter with a rocket-propelled grenade launcher, killing 6 soldiers. It was the first time a criminal group had destroyed a military aircraft in Mexico. By 2022, Mexican military intelligence reported that criminal groups were routinely deploying IEDs, drones, and new tactics. According to Alexei Chavez, a security analyst who has advised the Mexican army, Mexico is witnessing the latest phase of the war, a move toward paramilitary-style tactics and capabilities. Just as drones, cheap and easy to modify, have proliferated in the battlefields of Ukraine, their use by cartels for surveillance and precision bombing has surged drastically in recent years, according to government officials, security experts, and analysts. Drones allow criminals to attack rivals or security forces with far greater precision than the crude bombs they once relied on. With drones, the cartels have gained the ability to strike deep into enemy territory, to hit targets that would have been unreachable before. To prepare for heightened pressure from the Trump administration, criminal groups also started importing scanners to detect government drones and hiring more people with experience using and tracking the aircraft, cartel operatives have said in recent interviews with the New York Times. As another step, the operatives said, they increased arms shipments from the United States. To counter this unexpected rise in drone usage among cartels, the U.S. is testing an anti-cartel weapon to knock them out of the air. The Air Force Research Laboratory at Kirtland Air Force Base unveiled the silent weapon known as Tactical High-Power Microwave Operational Responder, aka Thor, in a live demonstration with local reporters. The system knocked out a hovering drone with an invisible and inaudible electromagnetic wave as the reporters watched. Thor, developed at a cost of $15 million, disabled the unmanned aerial vehicle in a flash and sent it spiraling to the ground. Thor program manager Amber Anderson stated that had more drones been flying within Thor's expansive scope, they also would have dropped instantly. It goes without saying that drones are no longer just harmless hobby systems as they were in the past. They are now being employed as weapons to strike targets at long standoff ranges. Drone technology has become very advanced and relatively cheap. Aside from Mexican cartels, the conflicts in Iraq and Syria have also shown that this capability is within reach of even non-state actors. A mass drone attack was witnessed on Russia's main outposts in Syria, the Khmeimim Air Base, and the naval base in Tartus in January 2018. Though the damage from the attack was insignificant according to Russia, it clearly displayed the potential of drones in warfare. U.S. President Donald Trump has revealed that the USS Boxer knocked down an Iranian drone. According to him, the drone came within 1,000 yards of the U.S. Navy ship and ignored multiple calls to stand down. Mr. Trump stated at the White House that the drone was threatening the safety of the ship and the ship's crew in the Strait of Hormuz and was immediately destroyed. Another evidence that a swarm of armed drones has the potential to cause massive damage happened on September 14, 2019, when facilities of Saudi Arabia's oil company, Aramco, located in the east of the country, came under attack. Reports indicate the raid began around 4 a.m. and involved 18 drones. The world's biggest oil refinery near Abqaiq and a refinery near Crises, where Saudi's second-largest oil field is located, were targeted. The damage was significant and caused a spike in global oil prices. At present, there are two ways to neutralize drones. The first is the non-kinetic kill approach, where the drone is not hit physically with a projectile. Electromagnetic weapons like Thor damage electric circuits or disrupt the drone's communication with the ground control station, resulting in them falling from the sky. Then there's the kinetic kill approach, where the enemy drone is physically damaged. This can be done by intercepting the drone with missiles, automated gun systems, and lasers. New-age drones powered by AI are more self-reliant and don't need continuous human control, making them resistant to electronic warfare. Several new variants of drones can automatically return to the operator even if communication is lost. Thor clearly uses the first approach. Thor was first exhibited by AFRL at the 2019 Air Force Association Air, Space, and Cyber Conference at the Gaylord National Resort and Convention Center, located across the Potomac River from Washington. D.C. Thor is not a hammer-wielding god, but a non-kinetic counter-drone swarm electromagnetic weapon that AFRL developed for air-based defense. Stephen Langdon, chief of the High-Powered Microwave Technologies branch of AFRL's Directed Energy Directorate, said, "Thor is essentially a high-powered electromagnetic source that we put together to specifically defeat drones." Thor program manager Amber Anderson explains that the system operates 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, 365 days a year. Like a flashlight, and anything caught in the beam will be taken down in the blink of an eye. It operates from ground power and uses energy to disable drones. It is designed for base defense from where it sends out a high-power, short pulse of microwaves that disable the electronics on the system itself. In case you're wondering if the weapon can be transported, it can. Thor can be packaged in a 20-foot transport container and easily transported in a C-130 aircraft. Reports indicate the system can be set up within 3 hours, and its user interface requires very little training. Further testing against larger sets of drone types and swarming configurations is planned. The Air Force began testing Thor against short-range targets earlier this spring, while another system, the counter-electronic high-power microwave extended-range air-base air defense, is designed to hit medium to long-range targets. If this silent but deadly weapon is not deployed, cartel drones can be taken out with traditional methods like rapid-firing guns. But since they are small and highly maneuverable, this can be difficult. And that's where the important advantages of Thor come in. Its speed enables it to hit targets almost instantaneously. It does not need to carry ammunition like traditional systems, allowing it to take out a much larger number of threats, constrained only by the platform's power supply. This is significant because traditional air defense systems can run out of ammunition when facing large numbers of incoming threats. Thor is silent and invisible, making it suitable for urban environments. It is also cost-effective, requiring only electricity, with a cost as low as $1 per shot compared to conventional weapons. At this point, there's little to no doubt that drones will play a significant role in future combat, and this scenario is becoming a reality faster than expected a decade ago. Given that Mexican cartels don't appear to be backing down anytime soon, the U.S. military predicts swarms of drones will be a major threat in the coming days. Non-kinetic technology is still relatively new, and scientists and engineers are working around the clock to master it. There are many challenges in using them for combat. However, it should be noted that the American military's experience with this type of weapon is not new, far from it. In 2010, the Air Force mounted and fired a megawatt-class chemical laser from a modified Boeing 747. Since then, things have changed, and solid-state lasers are now being used instead of unstable chemical lasers. The SHIELD program is developing a directed energy laser system as a demonstrator for a self-defense system that could enable aircraft to protect themselves from surface-to-air and air-to-air missiles. But even as Thor is in operation, the U.S. military is also pursuing kinetic solutions. Anduril Industries, a California-based tech startup, has started delivering hard-kill drones to the U.S. military designed to bring down enemy drones. The drone, named Interceptor, unveiled on October 3, 2019, is designed to destroy similarly sized hostile unmanned aircraft by physically ramming them in the air. But drones aren't the only threats that cartels use. How is the U.S. planning to counter their other weapons and labs? That's where the F-35 Lightning II comes into action. Developed by Lockheed Martin, is a single-seat, single-engine fifth-generation fighter jet designed to handle a wide range of missions, including air dominance, precision strikes, electronic warfare, and intelligence gathering. Regarded as one of the most advanced combat aircraft in the world, the F-35 combines low observability with powerful sensors, advanced networking, and supersonic performance. These features allow pilots to detect and respond to threats while staying largely hidden from enemy radar. The aircraft comes in 3 versions to meet different operational demands: the F-35A for traditional runways, the F-35B for short takeoff and vertical landing, and the F-35C for aircraft carrier operations. These variants are used across the U.S. Air Force, Navy, and Marine Corps, as well as by numerous allied air forces. A key advantage of the F-35 lies in its stealth technology, which significantly lowers its radar signature and allows it to fly missions deep into enemy territory with reduced risk of detection. This makes it particularly effective in high-threat environments where other aircraft might struggle to survive. This is supported by a powerful onboard computing system, which integrates data from its advanced radar, electro-optical targeting system, distributed aperture system, and some other sensors. The result of this is a real-time battle space awareness and information sharing with other assets, a key advantage in modern network-centric warfare. Its helmet-mounted display system projects critical data straight into the pilot's line of sight, and including night vision and targeting cues. This enhances situational awareness without overloading cognitive capacity. The jet also features open architecture software, further allowing for frequent updates to mission systems, weapons, and communications. The F-35 first flew in 2006 and entered service with the U.S. Marine Corps F-35B in July 2015, followed by the U.S. Air Force F-35A in August 2016, and the U.S. Navy F-35C in February 2019. With its advanced stealth features, it can be declared the world's most powerful aircraft engine and the most advanced radar. Further, the F-35 stands out as the world's only fifth-generation fighter jet capable of carrying nuclear bombs, beating other warplanes like F-22, J-20, and Su-52. While over 1,000 F-35s have been delivered worldwide, the program has faced challenges. These include higher-than-expected development costs, lower-than-planned parts commonality across variants, and design compromises, particularly to accommodate the F-35B's STOVL system. Critics argue some agility and performance trade-offs were made to meet the diverse needs of different military branches. Some call the jet an expensive jack-of-all-trades, but a master of none, a rattle of taxpayer money, an exceptionally dumb piece of Air Force PR. These are all quotes concerning the F-35 Lightning II. It's safe to say that the aircraft is the subject of some controversy, both from enthusiasts and professionals. One only has to type F-35 into the search engine to be met with a litany of articles from across the internet, all making the same critiques of the aircraft. The F-35 is no good in a dogfight. It's too lightly armored, it's overly expensive. Today, even with all the criticism, the aircraft is still a favorite. Let's see why. About the claim that the F-35 is no good in dogfight, it's not entirely wrong as there is level of truth, but this truth has all context and nuance stripped away by media vultures who are starving for clicks and the revenue they bring. And they have left the truth as nothing more than a stripped-away skeleton to be carelessly discarded and forgotten. It is true that the F-35 can't dogfight, or at least not as well as many of the aircraft it is intended to replace, but this is because it doesn't need to. Dogfighting as a tactic in aerial warfare has been made obsolete and antiquated by technological advances, and that's completely welcome. The claim that the F-35 can't dogfight appears to have its origin in a 2015 test flight report entitled F-35 A High Angle of Attack Operational Maneuvers, which was leaked by David Axe of War as boring. At face value, this report, which evaluates the jet's air combat maneuvering and dogfighting capabilities, appears damning, claiming that the F-35 was at a distinct disadvantage in a turning fight, and operators would quickly learn that it isn't an ideal regime. It wasn't effective for killing or surviving attacks, primarily due to lack of energy maneuverability. Sure, there's no doubt that this report is damning, but as pundits and commentators scrambled to publish quick and easy articles for clicks, they made a fatal mistake. They completely ignored the context. The report tested the F-35's air combat maneuvering capabilities, an obsolete battlefield capability that no longer exists and one that the aircraft would never need in real combat unless something went really wrong. And the fact is, planes don't fight like that anymore. And comparing different planes' statistics on paper and trying to calculate or simulate which plane can get behind the other is kind of an arcane way of looking at it, Burke said. Unlike older planes immortalized in films, the F-35 doesn't need to face its adversary to destroy it. The jet can fire off bore sight, virtually eliminating the need to jockey for position behind an enemy. The F-35 can take out a plane miles beyond visual range. It can pass targeting information to another platform, like a drone or a U.S. Navy destroyer, and down a target without even firing a shot. While U.S. Air Force pilots do train for classic World War II-era dogfights, and while the jet holds its own and can maneuver just as well as fourth-generation planes, dogfights just aren't that important anymore. So it won't be out of place to say the F-35 is the most effective fighter in the world. There's more of them, they're still being made, they're still being improved, and the fifth-generation jet has outstanding situational awareness that the F-22 and many other fighters can only dream of. Add in, the F-35 is already set up with a helmet-mounted cooling system, which the F-22 does not currently have. And one can say the F-35 outstrips other fighter planes in this regard. This makes it more effective than any other system out there. A combination of Thor and the F-35 puts Mexican cartels in an impossible position. In an all-out confrontation, not only would they have to deal with the silent drone vanquisher, they would also be caught in the inescapable jaws of the best fighter jet in the world. The war between the United States National Intelligence and the Mexican cartels has been going on for far too long. While there are reports that suggest the possibility of the cartels backing down and quitting their trade of fentanyl into the United States, perhaps afraid of their military, they seem to have other plans. This time there are reports of 15 cartel drones weaponized against a United States aircraft carrier. Could this be their undoing? Have they signed their death warrant by attempting an attack on America? Join us as we explore the United States' explosive reaction to the cartel's brazen decision to engage an aircraft carrier. While it isn't particularly an ideal of a well-run sovereign state, Mexico has continuously taken on the mantle of being home to the most unforgiving drug barons, who not only cook fentanyl and other types of substances on their land, but also have enough arms to power a small militia, pushing them even further than just being drug barons and cartel leaders into local terrorists. Although a sovereign state has autonomy of rulership and is ideally free from foreign intervention, especially from the juggernauts in the West, cartel leaders have come close quite a few times to breaking that reality since they decided to make the United States a market for their illicit substances being cooked at drug labs in Mexico. The United States had first seen the fentanyl problem rise in 2013, and the Center for Disease Control, otherwise called the CDC, called it the third wave of the opioid epidemic. In that year, 3,105 people died from overdosing on fentanyl. However, it got worse in 2022 when the United States took into account the consistent deaths from overdose on the super addictive fentanyl ferried from the Mexican border into America, and the numbers were overboard. Imagine a country losing over 72,000 people to an addictive substance from the borders of a sovereign state, and the ideals of sovereignty making it hard to respond with force. But what really is fentanyl and what makes it dangerous? Fentanyl is a synthetic opioid that is up to 50 times stronger than heroin and about 100 times stronger than morphine. Like other opioids, fentanyl use can lead to dependency and addiction. While there are other countries that produce this illicit substance, most illicit fentanyl is made in labs outside the country and smuggled across the United States-Mexico border. While the United States had consistently tried and failed at stopping these cartels dead in their tracks, owing to the red tape and bureaucratic process that comes with having a military presence in another sovereign state unless it is called Interpol. Fast forward to 2023, one of the United States' top senators, Lindsey Graham, wasn't having any more of it. He believed that the United States had been treating the cartel problem with a bit of levity, hence leaving them to fester like an open wound. So he suggested the introduction of a bill called the Ending the Notorious, Aggressive, and Remorseless Criminal Organizations and Syndicates, or NARCOS Act, which designates the top cartels in Mexico as foreign terrorist organizations. This way, the United States could finally give legitimacy to law enforcement agencies and prosecutors, empowering them with the authority to freeze the assets of these organizations, deny members of the cartels entry into the United States, and even seek out tougher punishments against those who provide any kind of material support to the terrorist organization. However, despite the continuous criticism from the United States, the Mexican government stands on its sovereignty and claims that the cartels are not in control of their country, as the United States has led everyone to believe. Despite what the president of Mexico says, drug cartels are in control of large parts of Mexico, said Graham. He confirms that they are making billions of dollars sending fentanyl and illicit substances into the United States, where it is killing citizens by the thousands. Designating these cartels as foreign terrorist organizations will be a game changer. More importantly, Senator Graham believed that they weren't working alone, and he explicitly mentioned the Chinese as their ally, who supplied them with the necessary ingredients to cook up the poison that had infested the United States, and his bill was also coming for them. However, his bill was rejected. While the cartels have been known to simply cook these illicit substances and find ways to peddle them across the United States-Mexico border, there was something else about them that had suddenly started to stand out like a sore thumb. Suddenly, they had improved from simple substance peddling and expanded their crime portfolio into other types of crimes, including smuggling operations, which were mostly human and human parts, and other contraband movements like guns, military-grade explosives, and so much more. This sudden increase in the cartel's crime syndicate led them to recruit enough ex-military and all types of professionals, enough to help wage and win small wars while armed to the teeth. For some context, news of suspected cartel criminals who belong to one of Mexico's most notorious cartels, the Cartel de Jalisco Nueva Generación, often called CJNG, were seen attacking the police in the western state of Michoacán in Mexico. The Mexican police force had never had to face the cartels with a drone before, and did not even know that the cartels now had drones rigged with bombs. Further reports explored the cartel's newfound confidence since they now had access to RPGs, nuclear weapons, and weaponized drones. Hence, they tried to assassinate Mexico City's police chief, Omar Garcia Harfuch. While the cartels fought an open rebellion against the Mexican national security system, they had been craftier when dealing with the titans of the West. However, having upgraded their crime syndicate beyond substance peddling into other illegal ventures, while arming themselves with enough to fight a small war and hiring mercenaries, they took a bolder step. Something more daring. Reports suggest that they chose to attack a United States aircraft carrier. But why the carrier? What makes the carrier that much of a threat? And why did it need to be taken out so badly by the cartel? Aircraft carriers are warships that serve as seagoing air bases, equipped with a full-length flight deck and hangar facilities for supporting, arming, deploying, and in some cases, recovering carrier-based aircraft. As of June 2025, there are only 50 active aircraft carriers in the entire world, and they are operated by 15 naval forces. The United States has the largest of these carriers, with a whopping 11 catapult-assisted takeoff but arrested recovery, or CATABAR, fleet carriers, each housing approximately 80 manned and unmanned carrier-based fighter jets. It is described as the perfect technology, especially for the purpose it serves, ferrying a whole airbase on its back to strategic points, good enough to hatch a plan and be ready to move out at any time. The United States active aircraft carriers are divided into two classes, including the Nimitz class, which carries the FA-18C Hornet, the FA-18EF Super Hornet, the F-35C Lightning II, the EA-18G Growler, the C-2 Greyhound, and the E-2CD Hawkeye, plus the Gerald R. Ford class, which also carries a large number of fighter jets. While all of the aircraft carriers, especially the Nimitz class, have often been referred to as the pride of the American Navy, one of them seems to stand out the most, the USS Harry S. Truman. But why is it the standout aircraft carrier? What makes it so special? The USS Harry S. Truman was designed as the 8th Nimitz-class aircraft carrier of the United States Navy and was named after the 33rd President of the United States, Harry S. Truman. The aircraft carrier was launched on September 7, 1996 by Newport News Shipbuilding, Newport News, Virginia, and commissioned on July 25, 1998, with Captain Thomas Otterbein in command. The USS Harry Truman has often been used as a flagship for one of the biggest carrier operations in the early 2000s, specifically the Carrier Strike Group 10, a United States Navy carrier strike group. As of August 2004, Carrier Strike Group 10 consisted of USS George Harry Truman, CVN-75, the strike group's flagship with Carrier Air Wing 7 embarked on board, as well as the Ticonderoga-class cruiser Lady Gulf and 4 ships of Destroyer Squadron 26. The warship has often been regarded as the crown jewel of the United States military force, not just owing to its sheer size and how much it intimidates opponents, but also for its strengths in war and how many operations it has been in and conquered for the United States. The USS Harry S. Truman, also called the HST by the United States Navy, is 1,092 feet long, almost the size of downtown Seattle's entire waterfront stretch, and 257 feet wide, while standing at a massive 244 feet. The aircraft carrier, alongside accommodating a lot of crew members, is also able to carry just about 90 aircraft and has a flight deck of 45 acres in size, with 4 elevators that are 3,880 square feet each to move around between the 24-story flight deck and the hangar bay. The warship also uses 2 Mark II stockless anchors, a streamlined derivation of the traditional Admiralty anchor used aboard large ships. Patented in England in 1821, it eliminated the stock of the Admiralty type, making it both easier to handle and stow. These anchors came from the USS Forrestal and weighed 30 tons each, with each link of the anchor chain weighing over 160 kilograms. On top of that, she is a well-protected sea monster, equipped with three 20mm Phalanx CIWS mounts and two Sea Sparrow surface-to-air missile launchers. However, one of its greatest capacities is its propulsion system using two Westinghouse A4W nuclear reactors. It's almost like having a tiny sun inside it. Ergo, it is nearly no surprise that the warship could travel at an incredible speed for over 3 million miles before it ever needed a refuel. More importantly, the warship has 4 giant propellers under the body of water that help push it forward. Each of these propellers weighs 66,000 pounds, nearly the size of 6 full-grown Asian elephants. These 5-bladed propellers are built to drive the warship at speeds over 30 knots. The warship has been a source of constant pain and a nightmare to the United States opposition, especially terrorists in Yemen, the Houthis, Israel, and even ISIS in Somalia. However, its latest contribution to America's war against the insurgents in Somalia came at a cost and claimed some lives. The carrier pulled into Naval Station Norfolk on Sunday, June 1st, with family and other sailors waiting to meet them. Videos and photos shared by the Navy and local media showed crew members embracing loved ones. A large combat action ribbon banner was set up on the ship's superstructure. It was a welcome homecoming for a carrier group that went on an extended 251-day-long deployment. The USS Truman has been deployed on several missions, particularly to fight insurgents and actually take the fight to them. For some context, when the Truman Carrier Strike Group arrived in the Middle East in December 2024, the United States Navy was more than a year into an ongoing fight with Houthi forces. The Truman was the latest in several aircraft carriers to be sent to waters around the Middle East since October 22, both as a wider deterrent and to deal with the threats from Yemen to shipping vessels. During its deployment, the crew of the USS Harry S. Truman and the aviators of Carrier Air Wing 1 launched 11,000 sorties, flew 25,000 flight hours, and executed 22 underway replenishments, as confirmed by Admiral Darrell Caudle, commander of United States Fleet Forces Command. Although the deployment was successful, it was also marred by some serious mishaps, including the loss of 3 of the warship's fighter jets. She lost the FA-18 fighter jets while also suffering a collision with a merchant ship that forced her into a change of command. Despite that, the Carrier Strike Force still remained at the forefront of the Navy's actions in the Middle East, giving them hell, like the crest on the battle flag says. Despite the USS Truman's intense battle at the Red Sea, it came back still standing and raring to go again when needed. Such is the force of the Sea Beast at its very best. As expected, news of their fighting and conquering Yemeni insurgents, ISIS, and the Houthis, which are all well-armed terrorist groups, traveled far and wide, but the Mexican cartels have had it in for the United States for a long time, and they believed that they could succeed where real terrorist organizations like ISIS and the Houthis failed, sinking the USS Truman, so they plotted an attack with drones. Drones were never really a part of the Mexican cartel inventory. They had bombs, local Molotov cocktails, military-grade C4, assault rifles, including AK-47s, semi-automatic guns like the Uzi, and even rifles. However, aerial power had never been a real focal point of their strength. However, they have recently found their way into real aerial threats, leveraging the use of drones for many reasons, such as smuggling items like narcotics, weapons, and money across the United States-Mexico border. Unmanned aircraft systems, otherwise called UAS, have been used extensively by cartels to perform intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions, otherwise called ISR, a privilege that was once limited to the military. However, they have found ways to get their hands on these drones and use them for closely monitoring the location and concentration of the United States forces and their federal agents, and to scout for the safety of their roads, seeing how feasible it is to ferry illegal migrants through the deserts between the United States and Mexico and make it into the United States. Although the intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance missions were the focus of their newly acquired power, Recent intelligence reports in the United States forebode a shift in the cartel's tactics, with threats of weaponizing their drones to target federal law enforcement, engaging them in a battle, and disrupting the border security to give them an advantage in moving not just the narcotics, but also sending a message to the United States about their newly acquired aerial threats. Like it is commonly said, for good or for ill, air mastery is today the supreme expression of military power, and the cartels showed it off. Although the drones are not particularly expensive, aerial threats like one would consider a fighter jet. For example, unmanned drones cost less than $2,000 and can be bought off the internet and retrofitted with a payload of the user's choice, which could be a camera or maybe an explosive, or anything strong enough to cause extreme damage and destruction. While the United States could respond with force, especially since they have a superior military, they have reportedly been opting for a more cautious approach, including a combat-tested counter-drone technology that provides real-time tracking, identification, and mitigation. However, recent reports are suggesting that the United States might have decided to throw caution to the wind and go for the jugular, especially since the unconfirmed reports of the cartels sending 15 drones to attack the United States USS Harry Truman, the famous crown jewel of the United States Naval Fleet. Although the drones reportedly had removed tracking systems and were in the air without a remote ID, the spreading intelligence is that it was possibly a coordinated attack from the Sinaloa cartel as retaliation for the extradition of the cartel leader's affiliate in 2023. However, it all dates back even further to 2019, when Ovidio Guzman was arrested in Mexico, but he was returned because the Sinaloan cartel had too much grip on a chunk of firepower in the country. For some context, an officer believed to have been involved in the arrest of Ovidio Guzman Lopez was riddled with 150 rounds in a matter of seconds, with a closed-circuit television revealing a group of armed men with connections to the Sinaloa cartel committing this heinous crime. Guzman Lopez was apprehended by 30 members of the National Guard, militarized police and army in a raid on his compound in October 2019. However, officers were forced to release him after members of his father's notorious Sinaloa cartel swarmed the area, burning cars, destroying roads, ruining architecture, while armed to the teeth with military-grade weapons and mercenaries who are mostly ex-military with training to fire at them. The house where Guzman Lopez was taken was surrounded, while fighters ran through the surrounding city firing what appeared to be .50 caliber sniper rifles and machine guns while battling police and soldiers in broad daylight, and more importantly, they were winning. Videos were posted on social media showing gunmen in ski masks in battle formation, taking on Mexican forces, riding in the backs of trucks, and firing mounted machine guns at vehicles and gas stations. The Mexican authority bowed out in shame and gave Guzman Ovidio back to the cartel, causing an international embarrassment. However, in 2023, they went back in and targeted Guzman Ovidio again. This time, they had had 4 years to prepare and were ready to extradite him immediately when he was captured to the United States. They made up for the 2019 embarrassment and extradited the criminal to the United States. The furious Sinaloan cartel retaliated with an all-out war and persistent carnage on Mexican soil, but nothing came of it, as their war is not with the United States. With their motives established, reports that they might have been the perpetrators who attacked the United States warship with unmarked drones are not so far-fetched anymore. The Trump administration is now reportedly weighing up fighting fire, with the possibility of launching drone attacks on the Mexican cartels in Mexico, even though they have no jurisdiction. The Sinaloan cartel might have finally picked the wrong fight and the wrong country. Whether the United States approves a ruthless retaliation, flexing their military might and aerial dominance, or let the Mexican government handle it, only time will tell. At 4 a.m. on July 24, 2025, the USS Harry S. Truman floated silently through the Gulf of California. It looked like any other Navy carrier, but this ship wasn't here for diplomacy. 50 nautical miles east, cartel boats armed with stolen launchers and modified drones rushed over, and their mission? To strike fast, hit hard, and disappear. But it wasn't so easy. They had no idea they were heading into a trap. This time, the Navy wasn't alone. Below deck, something unexpected awaited. So what really happened that morning? And why didn't the cartel see it coming? Join us as we unravel how the United States Marines tricked cartels into a stunning defeat. Mexican cartels have long been a fishbone in the neck of the U.S. military. Although both the Mexican and U.S. government are trying their best to fend off this army of criminals and reach a fair enough compromise for both countries, it appears that the U.S. is on the receiving end of the criminal activities. It's quite hard to imagine that two countries separated by a fence could be at loggerheads over jurisdiction for so long, but it's also hard, if not impossible, to overlook the fact that many deaths have been caused by the continuous transportation of drugs from Mexico to the U.S. The tension had been building for months. With land borders fortified by walls and patrols, the cartels pivoted to maritime routes, funneling fentanyl that killed over 82,000 Americans last year alone. Whispers of corruption ran deep, suspicions that Mexican police and military units were turning a blind eye or worse, aiding the syndicates with tips and safe passage. While it cannot be denied that Mexico has tried to solve the cartel puzzle, they have failed in their attempts because, unlike the U.S. that does not negotiate with terrorists, Mexico prefers to employ diplomacy in dealing with the issue, a method that has consistently failed. The Trump administration officially designated 8 Latin American cartels, including 6 from Mexico, as foreign terrorist organizations for their major roles in drug smuggling and human trafficking into the United States. The move marks a major escalation in the administration's efforts to cripple the cartels, as an FTO designation grants the administration access to enhanced counterterrorism authorities, such as the ability to launch covert operations authorized by the president. The FTO designation came only days after the Mexican Senate approved the presence of the U.S. Army's 7th Special Forces Group to conduct joint training with Mexico's elite Naval Marine Corps. During his address to Congress earlier this year, President Donald Trump did not mince words about the threat drug cartels pose. The cartels are waging war on America, and it's time for America to wage war on the cartels. His statement marks the clearest indication so far that the new administration is serious about confronting the cartels and follows a series of escalating actions. As mentioned, the U.S. does not negotiate with terrorists, so when it became unbearable, the U.S. struck, and it struck in an unexpected way. To send a clear message to the cartels that it was done talking, the U.S. positioned one of its most powerful aircraft carriers, the USS Harry S. Truman, just off the Pacific coast. But the cartels, drunk with years of unchecked power and used to the hesitation from Mexican authorities, saw the move as mere bluff. What happened next was completely shocking. Under the cover of a moonless night off the treacherous coast of Mexico, California, on July 24, 2025, hundreds of cartel fighters stormed toward the Pacific coast in a massive fleet of 55 vessels. 40 nimble speedboats armed with AK-47s and rocket-propelled grenades backed by 15 larger gunboats bristling with heavy machine guns. These weren't your average smugglers. They were a cartel armada composed of hundreds of battle-hardened fighters from the Sinaloa and Jalisco New Generation syndicates, launching a brazen assault on the U.S. Navy patrol ship they considered bluff. The assault group thought the open sea was still their playground, as usual, a lawless highway for transporting fentanyl into America and causing chaos in the free country. But they couldn't be more wrong. What they didn't know was that a storm was brewing above and below the waves. 50 nautical miles away, the USS Harry S. Truman carrier group floated. Its decks were alive with FA-18 Super Hornets and MQ-9 Reaper drones ready to unleash precision hell on the first enemy to fall within its target range. The carrier wasn't there to show, it was there to remind anyone that challenging America might come at a deadly price. In the dead of night, at precisely 4 a.m., the calm waters off the Mexico-California border transformed drastically into a heavy tension that could be cut with a knife. This part of the sea was a vital strait, a lifeline for global oil trade, where billions in cargo flowed daily through narrow channels linking the Pacific to American ports. The slightest disruption here was capable of spiking fuel prices worldwide, sending ripples through world economies from one end of the world to another. But on this fateful night, the sea didn't serve as a regular trade route. It became a battlefield, one that would determine the fate of cartel lords and put them in their place. The brewing battle was destined to be tough because the assailants were no ragtag bandits. A cartel armada was about to face off against the U.S. million, and the 15 larger gunboats backing them were equipped with heavy machine guns capable of shredding holes from afar. As if they didn't have enough armory already, 20 advanced drones rigged with high explosive payloads hovered above, ready to strike from the skies with devastating accuracy. If you still think they were just simple traffickers, they were mistaken. They were a paramilitary force shifting from clogged land borders to the open sea, exploiting gaps where the border wall vanished into the waves. And facing this onslaught, the United States Navy, but not just the Navy. No one expected the USS Harry S. Truman to be anything more than a floating airbase. A fortress of steel, yes, but mostly planes, not boots on deck. But the cartels made one fatal assumption. The Truman was carrying more than the Navy. She was carrying firepower of a different breed. Marines. The USS Harry S. Truman Carrier Group stood as the command hub, with its nuclear-powered heart pumping life into a fleet of over 150 sailors and 500 Marines. From its vast decks, FA-18 Super Hornets and electronic warfare growlers waited to launch, providing aerial cover without exposing the carrier to direct fire. There were 2 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers flanking the scene. Bristling with Tomahawk missiles and close-in weapon systems, they were more than ready to unleash hell from a distance. 4 MQ-9 Reaper drones circled silently overhead, their sensors piercing the darkness to relay real-time intel. When the cartel fleet started closing in with engines roaring like muffled thunder, the Navy braced for a clash that would test both their steel and their resolve. The cartel, with their heavy infantry, somehow believed that they had the upper hand. But little did they know that America's response was already locked and loaded. As the clock struck 4:15 a.m., the 2 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers flanking the carrier drifted into the distance. It looked like they were fleeing, but they had another assignment in the battle. Minutes later, the still waters erupted into massive chaos. Like a tidal wave of fury, the army of drug traffickers surged forward with all their 55 vessels closing in on the American destroyers at breakneck speed. The smaller speedboats were ahead, and their engines roared as the fighters leveled their rifles and rocket-propelled grenades at the Navy hulls. The attack power was nothing short of terrifying, but that wasn't the real deal. The actual threat came from the 15 larger gunboats, which had their decks alive with heavy machine guns chattering relentlessly as bullets ricocheted off armored plating like angry hornets. The cartel fighters didn't hold back, not that they could even if they wanted to. They directly rammed their boats into the destroyers' flanks, sending shockwaves through the water with the impact. If the boats were any smaller, they may have been crushed by the impact. Cartel fighters leaped aboard in a frenzy, engaging the military in hand-to-hand combat. Razor-sharp machetes were swung, and shots were being fired at point-blank range. The fighters, in a rush of adrenaline, shouted in Spanish, their voices mixed with the crack of gunfire as they stormed the decks, with a single aim: to overwhelm the American crew in close quarters. One destroyer rocked violently as a cartel gunboat slammed its bow, allowing a dozen fighters to clamber over the rails. Hand-to-hand clashes broke out, fists and rifle butts flying in the dim glow of deck lights. The air filled with the acrid smell of gunpowder and the metallic tang of blood. Engines roaring like muffled thunder amid the pandemonium. But the Navy was ready. Although they were previously prepared for long-range battle, as they didn't expect their assailants to so brazenly climb onto the destroyers, it didn't take long to prepare other weapons, and the Marines were there precisely for that reason. Close-range weapon systems spun to life with a mechanical whine, and they unleashed torrents of depleted uranium rounds that shredded incoming drone swarms. The sleek, explosive-laden cartel drones that were on standby were finally deployed. They dived at Mach speeds, flying toward the ships with their payloads primed for maximum devastation. At this point, things appeared ugly for the Marines. One drone exploded mid-air, raining shrapnel that wounded 3 sailors. Another grazed a destroyer's radar mast, its blast killing 1 American outright in a flash of fire and debris, sending several spiraling harmlessly into the sea and putting them in an even worse situation. But the comeback was quick. While the melee combat was raging between Marines and cartel members, Navy teams executed pit maneuvers with surgical precision, ramming cartel boats off course and flipping them into the waves. To avoid drowning, the assailants leapt into the air, swinging their arms as they desperately tried to cling to the side of the destroyers. But the Marines wouldn't let that happen. They followed the attack by raining fire from behind bulkheads, their M4 carbines barking in controlled bursts that dropped fighters mid-leap. The cartel vessels that were still standing pressed hard, furthering their own attack. Their drones scored multiple hits that burnt off the paint from the destroyers and dented armor. But the layered defenses held. The fight turned visceral, and as waves crashed against hulls, knives flashed in the air, finding their way into flesh and bodies, tumbling overboard from the impacts. Yet the Marines' discipline shone, even through the smoke and screams. What began as a bold assault by the cartel had turned into a desperate gamble. The American counterstrike was brewing from afar, but they needed time, and so even as the sea boiled with wreckage, the line held, refusing to break. The initial clash had drawn blood, but America's response was as swift as it was unforgiving. While this battle was raging, the USS Harry S. Truman remained safely positioned miles offshore. The boss, who had been quiet the whole time, finally barked orders, commanding that the strike package be launched. Reaper first. Hornets on standby. In a matter of minutes, 4 MQ-9 Reaper drones lifted off, racing to join the fray. These unmanned predators were armed with Hellfire missiles and guided by real-time satellite feeds. They locked onto the cartel fleet stragglers, and with impeccable precision, unleashed strikes that lit the horizon like distant fireworks. The enemy was rendered helpless as the piece of the strike dealt a blow they didn't see coming. The toll was staggering. 180 cartel fighters lay dead or dying. 40 vessels were reduced to floating wreckage. Their drone swarms scattered like broken toys. But the victory didn't come without a cost. An American soldier, a Marine, fell to a stray rocket-propelled grenade during the melee, while 4 more suffered shrapnel wounds and a destroyer's radar array took minor damage, flickering offline briefly. At this point, the cartel had realized their error. This was no ordinary navy, it was the Marine Corps. With no choice, the cartel retreated. Unfortunately, as the survivors scrambled ashore, American satellites tracked their every move. Heat signatures betrayed their retreat to a secondary base. The technical team transmitted the location of the second base to an unseen ally and guided them quietly to the precise position. But the cartels had no idea. All they could see was that the American destroyers were closing in on them. They didn't surrender, not that they could. They struck back with vengeance. Hours after the initial strikes, what remained of their armada regrouped. 55 vessels had been reduced to 15, but somehow their confidence remained. In the distance, a mix of battered speedboats and gunboats charged toward the American destroyers in a desperate second wave. This time, they didn't immediately go in for hand-to-hand combat. Fueled by rage and perhaps motivated by fentanyl profits, the fighters opened fire from afar, their heavy machine guns stitching the water with tracers. But just like the previous attack, the real horror came from above. Yes, the drones. The 20 drones had been reduced to the remaining 12, and all 12 of them, with high explosive warheads and swarm intelligence, dove-like kamikaze falcons, their payloads designed to punch through armored decks, were ready to rain hell again. In no time, the sea turned into a maelstrom of close-quarters fury. 2 cartel boats were overmotivated and rammed into the destroyers again. Fighters from both boats swarmed aboard in brutal hand-to-hand assaults. They screamed their mantra as knives flashed and AK-47s blazed in the confined chaos. After realizing their error and knowing there was no turning back, the carelessness of the cartel was visible now. Rather than dominance and strategy, they were filled with desperation. One U.S. destroyer shuddered as a cartel drone slammed into its superstructure, the explosion ripping through the destroyer, spreading a hail of shrapnel that wounded some sailors. One Marine gunner fell when he was unexpectedly struck by a cartel sniper's round, and that was only the second fatality from the U.S. troops. Remember the 2 Arleigh Burke-class destroyers flanking the carrier? They weren't carrying naval officers. They were carrying the war. Hidden in their steel bellies were U.S. Marines, locked, loaded, and waiting. When their moment came, they surged forward. The destroyer's vertical launch systems flared to life, belching fire as dozens of Tomahawk cruise missiles roared from their cells. They hugged the ocean's surface like hunting wolves, skimming low to avoid detection. Each missile was dialed into cartel gunboats with a sniper's precision, only faster, colder, and far more final. There was a brief silence, but that was only the calm before the storm. Explosions rocked the water as warheads detonated, splintering the hulls of boats and sending fighters tumbling into the churning foam. Meanwhile, under the cover of smoke and the technical coordination from the USS Harry S. Truman, Marine assault forces made their move. 1st Battalion, 2nd Marines hit the shore in a rolling thunder of AAV, 7 amphibious assault vehicles, and LCACs. Naval gunfire kept enemy heads down, while the Marines breached the port perimeter with lethal speed. Makeshift cartel towers, hastily rigged with machine guns, became coffins as Marine sniper teams, ghosts in the brush, took them down before they could even squeeze a trigger. Now the cartel armada were right in the middle of the storm. With the naval destroyers in front and the Marines behind, their attack effected direct hits on multiple vessels, reinforcing the morale of the military. High above, F-35Bs from Marine Fighter Attack Squadron 211, launched from USS America, striking cartel lookout towers and disabling radar systems. FA-18 Super Hornets from Truman screamed into action, their afterburners glowing like angry stars. Diving in coordinated waves, they dropped laser-guided bombs on cartel strongholds along the Mexican coast, identified through urgent intel feeds. Satellite imagery had pinpointed hidden bases, camouflaged warehouses stocked with fentanyl labs and weapon caches deep in cartel territory near Tijuana. One strike obliterated a command center, its subterranean bunker collapsing in a plume of dust and fire, burying dozens under tons of rubble. The deck became a battlefield of blood and brass, with hand-to-hand struggles echoing the raw intensity of pirate boardings from centuries past. Bullets whizzed, bodies collided, and the air reeked of cordite and fear as fighters grappled in the flickering emergency lights. But the Marines and Navy weren't about to despair. Resolve hardened. From the distant USS Harry S. Truman, coordinated drone strikes launched in retaliation. MQ-9 Reapers, armed with classified payloads, targeted cartel hideouts revealed by satellite tracking. One strike obliterated a Mexican coastal base, vaporizing 80 more fighters in a fireball that lit the horizon. To counter the drone swarm, the carrier deployed experimental laser weapons, high-energy beams from directed energy systems that fired the incoming threats mid-flight, their circuits melting in silent bursts of light. A controller reported that the target had been neutralized as the lasers danced across the sky like invisible swords. Just when it seemed all was lost for the cartel, the roar of FA-18 Super Hornets added to their misery. Missiles screamed down from above, tearing into the cartel boats that had almost reached striking range. Explosions lit up the strait as the tide turned in seconds. What had looked like a certain kill became a chaotic retreat. By nightfall, it was over. The drones were gone, turned to ash. The cartel vessels, scattered wrecks floating in silence. Who would have thought that a cartel armada armed with unbelievable firepower could be brought to its knees in less than 24 hours? What began as a brazen and bold assault quickly became a lesson in warfare and dominance. The cartel came, expecting to find a soft target, but found themselves face to face with the might of the Marine Corps. It was a message well sent. A cartel base was erased without a single boot crossing the border. In an astonishing Navy operation, the United States obliterated a big cartel base in seconds. The mission was completed with such precision that it felt like a classified counter-terror operation rather than a drug enforcement operation, and that was the point. America is no longer just playing around, fighting cartels. They are hunting them down with the same tools that were once reserved for terrorist targets. So how did this operation work? And is this the initiation of a new kind of war that is silent, across borders, and with no avenue for escape? Join us as we break down what's happening behind the headlines, which may change global crime forever. The deadliest wars aren't always fought with missiles and tanks. For years, drug cartels have been deploying a fleet of crewed submarines to transport narcotics. They call them the narcotic submarines, or narco subs, and send them to sea from their jungle workshops in Colombia and Peru. The dimension of a narco sub can be between 30 and 50 feet and is still shockingly primitive with no GPS, radio, or weapons, but at the same time is very functional in its simplicity. Its only mission is to deliver millions of dollars in drug payloads through the open ocean and then disappear into the blue sea and never return. These improvised submarines are built for under $1 million and transport cocaine or heroin worth about $30 million. No one knows if the crew members are involved. However, if law enforcement discovers these vessels, the operators would flip a switch to sink the vessel, destroying all evidence and cutting off the mission. Naval forces regularly participate in a game of high-stakes underwater hide-and-seek, searching the seas for the almost non-existent footprints of narco subs lurking just below the surface. But last May, that game took a giant shift. Law enforcement intercepted and seized 4 ghost vessels in just 21 days. One submarine was stopped just before it could enter international waters while under law enforcement detection and was seized by the United States. Another was caught skimming just 7 feet below the surface, so low it fell below radar detection, a near-perfect blind spot. The confrontation became a clash between technological superiority and the cartel's enormous smuggling audacity. Due to the severity of the situation, the United States Navy employed strategic precision rather than overwhelming force. Convection cutters like the Cutter James and elite helicopters with the squadron teams are usually stationed offshore in total darkness, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. They are very efficient in carrying out naval missions because they recognize that if any submarine successfully evades capture, millions of dollars in narcotics would be flooding into American streets. The Navy understands it cannot carry out the mission alone, so it partners with neighboring countries. The Orion campaign is an unprecedented coalition of 62 countries sharing real-time, satellite, drone intelligence, surveillance, and coordinated information. Each partner maximally leverages its capabilities. In Colombia, for instance, Special Operations Forces will conduct operations in the jungle in search of clandestine submarine building operations. Ecuador can track foreign distributions of lithium batteries, key submarine components that move through the river ecosystem. In the Atlantic, the Netherlands supports naval teams with sophisticated underwater drones that can systematically scan the seafloor and identify uniquely shaped formations that could indicate a submarine den. This collaboration neutralized more than 130 high-value targets between November 24 and February 25. That's more than 60 narco submarines expected to carry an estimated street value of $2.5 billion worth of drugs. Notably, the unwillingness of the coalition forces to take physical possession of drugs represents a significant psychological victory. The Orion campaign does not chase after boats. It tracks patterns, movements, and errant behaviors that even the most meticulous traffickers struggle to hide. Since its inception, and with the capture of the 60th narco submarine, one thing is obvious. In this type of war, victory does not belong to whoever moves first, but to whoever knows how to wait. The waiting comes to fruition with one of the operation's quiet powerhouses, United States Coast Guard Cutter James. A little over 390 feet in length, this boat does not wield huge missiles, nor does it have a radar system. Instead, its weapon is more difficult to counter: patience, discipline, and focus. Between 2024 and 2025, the USS Cutter James spent a little more than 100 days at sea and performed more than 20 precision operations without launching a single missile. But the effect of those operations devastated the cartel's supply lines. Then on February 14th, the crew noticed something odd: a thin water trail that didn't fit any shipping patterns. The vessel wasn't broadcasting identification signals or taking any reputable course. Instead of swooping in, the James followed the target from a distance and let it drift east toward suspected delivery zones. At the right time, the team deployed a small drone to overwrite its source, and the picture became clear. It was a narco sub painted for camouflage, with only the tip of its tail appearing above water. In just minutes, a tactical helicopter flew off the back of the USS Cutter James. It did not pursue the crew or attempt to sink the vessel. It fired non-lethal rounds at the engine of the submarine, disabling it and forcing it to surface. There was not enough time for the smugglers to escape or destroy what was on the boat, an estimated cargo of nearly 140 million United States dollars. This is just one operation of what the Cutter James is capable of. Sometimes the boat remains covert, dropping underwater sonar nets to trap unsuspecting submarines. Sometimes it trails a commercial vessel that appears harmless until drug containers are discovered. And often the USS Cutter James does not make the arrest in person. It does so quietly by sending out coordinates to partner nations such as Ecuador or Costa Rica and letting them intercept and take action. On April 2025, a spokesperson from the United States Department of Homeland Security revealed something important. They said the Cutter James isn't judged by how many missions it completes, but by how many drug runs it stops before they reach the mainland. By their estimate, the James has blocked nearly $500 million worth of illegal shipments without firing a shot. To the cartels, this ship is not a regular patrol boat. It's a ghost. They never know where it is or when it might strike. Every time a smuggling route is shut down, every time a sub is captured intact, another piece of $1 billion drug empire is broken apart. And that's why nothing scares the enemy more than the ship they never see coming. A nation's navy has always represented its standing in the world. Only a few empires owned the waters during the Age of Exploration, as the British Empire did for centuries. Yet this completely changed after the Second World War, and the United States emerged with the most significant maritime force in the world. Today, the Navy represents more than warships and missiles. It reflects America's core values: freedom, independence, and resilience. Even in the 18th century, as a new nation finding its place, the United States understood that controlling the seas meant protecting its future. One of the most evident signs of that strength today is the unmatched fleet of American aircraft carriers, often called floating cities. The United States Navy has 11 of the world's largest and most advanced aircraft carriers, more than its neighboring countries combined, and can project its power globally. American naval dominance began in 1922 with the launch of the USS Langley, the Navy's first aircraft carrier. The fleet has evolved through decades of innovation and advances in engineering. The fleet's backbone is the Nimitz and Gerald R. Ford classes. The Nimitz class was introduced in the 1970s when it became synonymous with American might and global security. As these ships are at the end of their life cycle, the Gerald R. Ford class will not only act as their replacement, but will redefine an aircraft carrier's capabilities. To put that into perspective, imagine a vast, floating city that travels the globe while carrying dozens of fighter jets, helicopters, and thousands of personnel, all ready to respond to a crisis anywhere in the world at a moment's notice. That is an American aircraft carrier. Most countries may possess one or two smaller carriers to conduct limited operations. If there's trouble on the other side of the planet, the U.S. does not need to wait for permission to use someone else's land. It simply dispatches a carrier. The Gerald R. Ford measures more than 1,000 feet in length and weighs about 100,000 tons, making it the largest aircraft carrier ever made by the United States. Its redesigned flight deck allows for a 25% increase in takeoffs and aircraft landings daily compared to the Nimitz class, with the added ability to take advantage of a smaller island control tower, which was reduced by 20%. The Gerald R. Ford maximizes usable deck space for daily operations. The carrier has an improved dual-band radar system combining SPY-3 and SPY-4 technology. This powerful radar system can track more than 200 targets simultaneously, including maritime fighter jets, weapons-equipped cruise missiles, and even hypersonic threats, with complete capability in poor weather. With these many advances, the Ford is not only an air-launching platform for operation, but a floating command and control center for a modern and demanding battlefield. The Gerald R. Ford is meant for detection, defense, speed, and endurance. It has over 10 advanced weapon elevators that lift almost 24,000 pounds of ammunition at 150 feet per minute. It would have taken hours to get the same result, but now it can be accomplished in 10 minutes. The integrated power system generates 600 megawatts of power, 3 times greater than a Nimitz class. Enough electrical capacity for its weapon systems, both current and future capability. The smart distribution can keep things operational after damage to critical systems. Most importantly, the Gerald R. Ford can provide continuous operations for up to 25 years, provided the nuclear refuel is replaced, allowing for fewer supply missions and operational costs and more endurance during long deployments. To the United States Navy, these carriers are more than warships. They are a floating laboratory to test and improve future technologies. Components such as electric armor to deflect incoming projectiles, weapons, and even high-energy combat lasers have been developed. They are now included as actual systems on board the Gerald R. Ford-class carriers and have been tested positively. However, besides the advancements on deck, the Navy has more power, which is evident below the sea. A nuclear propulsion system propels the Gerald R. Ford. It has 3 massive propellers, each about 20 feet wide and the size of a small swimming pool. These propellers allow the ship to travel over 30 knots faster than most cargo ships on the ocean. That propulsion system allows the Ford to have airspeed capabilities to carry dozens of fighter jets with tons of weapons and plenty of fuel to strike for an entire week, while reaching anywhere in the world in about 5 to 7 days. In simple terms, the Gerald R. Ford is an operationally complete mobile airport. It can circle half the world in under a week and begin air operations the moment it arrives. With more than 3 million gallons of fuel on board, it does not need to be refueled, nor does it need to consider the availability of bases near the area of operations. That capability adds a level of risk, practically and psychologically, to any adversary. Its presence can boost morale and engagement on a battlefield, helping the United States allies gain a practical advantage in warfare. The United States Navy has over 50 multi-purpose attack submarines, 14 strategic missile submarines, and 4 guided missile submarines. Each type of submarine has a particular function that adds to security at sea. Attack submarines of the Los Angeles, Seawolf, and Virginia classes are like silent assassins and underwater snipers because of their unique ability to not be seen. They travel fast and are heavily armed. They are armed with Mark 48 torpedoes and Tomahawk cruise missiles that can target ships and land targets. The latest versions of Virginia-class submarines, especially the block upgrades, Block 3 and Block 4, can carry approximately 40 Tomahawk missiles, making every Virginia-class submarine a mobile center of power, able to deal with a devastating strike. To understand how powerful that is, think of a Virginia-class submarine like a city bus, but instead of passengers, it's packed with long-range Tomahawk missiles, each capable of hitting a target with extreme accuracy from hundreds of miles away. Now imagine that bus moving silently beneath the ocean, completely undetectable, and ready to launch a devastating strike without warning. With around 40 of these missiles on board, a single Virginia-class submarine has enough firepower to hit multiple enemy bases, airfields, or ships, all from deep underwater and without ever being seen. Then there is the Ohio class, the bedrock of America's nuclear deterrence. The intimidating vessels are over 560 feet long and weigh up to 20,000 tons. Originally designed to carry 24 nuclear Trident missiles, the Ohio class now only carries 20 missiles due to international agreements. However, the Ohio class still contains nearly half of the country's active strategic nuclear warheads. To put this into perspective, imagine a quiet, invisible train deep underwater, with each car having a weapon with enough destructive power to wipe an entire city off the face of the earth. Adversaries wouldn't sense it was coming. This is the threat of the Ohio class. 4 of the 18 submarines were modified to carry guided missiles instead of nuclear weapons, and therefore can strike with great precision and without detection. Ideal for smaller, swift-moving threats, without initiating a larger conflict. From the year 2000 to the year 2007, the United States Navy significantly transformed its submarine fleet. The Navy converted 4 Ohio-class submarines, built only as nuclear deterrent forces, to guided missile submarines. Each conversion cost about $1 billion, but brought substantive capability. These vessels can now employ up to 66 Navy SEALs and specialized underwater craft like the SEAL delivery vehicle. The enhancements effectively transformed the Ohio class from a single-role nuclear platform to a multi-mission weapon that can strike precision targets and hyper-enable deep-sea covert operations anywhere on the globe. Each Ohio-class submarine can carry up to 20 Trident 2D5 ballistic missiles. While these missiles do not have designated targets when the submarines are launched, they can receive real-time mission updates at sea. This capability is made possible through secure ultra-low frequency communications provided by the United States Strategic Command in Nebraska. In addition to nuclear capability, the Ohio-class submarines have 22 vertical launch tubes that can launch up to 154 Tomahawk cruise missiles. Prime example of the capabilities of the Ohio-class submarine was shown in 2011 with Operation Odyssey Dawn. As part of a joint effort with British and French forces, the USS Florida, SSGN 728, launched 93 Tomahawk missiles to take out Libya's air defenses under Muammar Gaddafi. The overall operation created a successful no-fly zone and significantly diminished the regime's ability to respond. The mission clearly showed these converted submarines are not only nuclear deterrents, but also tactical assets that could influence the course of a conflict before it ever turned into a full war. The United States Navy is preparing for a future of attack submarines that could be called SSNX-class submarines. The SSNX class will replace the Underwater Virginia and Seawolf classes by the year 2040. The SSNX program aims to boost stealth, dramatically improve underwater sensors, and increase weapons capabilities. The SSNX submarines would perform various missions with flexible utility, including intelligence collection, special operations, and anti-submarine warfare, all of which would support more missions at a lower cost for the Navy. Each SNS submarine will likely cost $5.6 billion to $7.2 billion, with a price tag vastly more than a Gerald R. Ford-class aircraft carrier at approximately $13 billion. The new SSNX-class submarines mark a considerable step forward in the United States Navy's effort to maintain its edge against growing global threats, particularly the advanced Russian and Chinese undersea threats represented by the Yassin class and Type 095 submarines. Each contends with some combination of speed, silence, and lethality, all valued attributes of an adversarial submarine. However, the SSNX submarines are wired to outperform those challenges. Some of the critical upgrades include a water jet propulsion system that eliminates traditional propellers. The system is quieter while still able to achieve speeds over 35 knots. With AI engaged with the sonar and weapon systems, the SSNX will be able to process, react, and engage with highly accurate lethality, all in the high-pressure environment of undersea combat. What sets the United States Navy apart from any other Navy? It boils down to one thing: consistently investing in new technology and weapon systems. Rather than relying on size alone, the Navy has invested in innovation. From undersea surveillance to missile accuracy, almost every facet of its operations has been modernized to address today's threats. The Navy is designed to be fast and accurate. It is capable of a global reach, whether hunting a sneaky submarine or conducting a precision airstrike hundreds of miles away. A pirate crew thought they'd hit the jackpot. A massive ship drifting silently through the Gulf of Aden, no lights, no flag, no escorts, just a tempting shadow in the dark. To the cartel-backed pirates, it looked like an easy target, and so they took off after it. What they didn't know was that this wasn't some helpless freighter. It was the last ship they ever wanted to mess with. Behind that massive silhouette was a fully loaded, nuclear-powered U.S. aircraft carrier. And by the time they realized it, they weren't making a getaway, and they were praying for one. What happened next in those dark waters? And how did a normal intercept turn into a nightmare on the high seas? Join us as we find out what happened to the cartel pirates who tried to hit the wrong U.S. Navy ship. They came armed, thinking a cargo ship had fallen into their hands, a big, slow ship ripe for the taking. Armed Somali pirates filled the two skiffs. They cut through the waves at full speed with their engines roaring across the dark waters of the Gulf of Aden. What was their target? A massive silhouette on the horizon. The said silhouette had no flag, no lights. It was just like a gigantic steel container floating quietly. In pirate logic, that usually means unescorted freight, but they couldn't have been more mistaken. It didn't take up to 90 seconds before the silhouette revealed itself before their eyes. They finally saw it for what it really was, and it was not a cargo ship at all. What was before them was a floating war fortress. Not just a U.S. Navy ship, but a full-blown nuclear-powered aircraft carrier. The kind that launches warplanes before breakfast and carries more firepower than some countries combined. The battle line was drawn. The pirates weren't ill-armed at all. They had AKs and RPGs. But the carrier was a different story altogether. There were about 5,000 sailors, Sea Whiz cannons, radar-guided missile systems, and a zero-patience policy for threats. What happened next wasn't even a standoff. There was no fight. The Navy taught the pirates a hard lesson, one that started with a warning and ended with weapons drawn and the pirates face down on a rigid-hull inflatable boat, or RHIB. And this is what happens when pirates pick the wrong ship. And not just any ship, but trying to hit a US Navy aircraft carrier was the mistake of the century. The radar picked them first. Two fast-moving blips with low signature and no AIS signal were approaching at top speed. In the Red Sea, that's never a good sign. Inside the Combat Information Center of the USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, the system lit up in no time. Without hesitation, the operator called out the approaching threat as they were closing in. The officer on the deck didn't need to be told twice. He leaned into comms in the flight deck to launch a Seahawk immediately. Outside the information center, the carrier was already awake. This wasn't a sleepy convoy after all. It was a full strike group on patrol, and the carrier was its nerve center, not something to be messed with. In less than 2 minutes, an MH-60R Seahawk could be seen spinning its rotors as it roared off the deck. Loaded with a door gunner, radar systems, and eyes sharp enough to ID a tattoo at 5,000 feet, it moved with precision, straight toward the incoming threat. Meanwhile, the sailors on the flight deck had paused for exactly 0 seconds. That means they've been up and about. The men in yellow shirts cleared space. Those in red shirts checked weapons load to avoid mistakes, and green shirts waved clearance for another bird on standby. In the CIC, it became clear that the skiffs were splitting. One was pulling apart while the other was still heading straight for the carrier. It was a typical pirate tactic: divide and confuse. But what did the Navy do? There was no panic at all. The captain gave a simple command. He ordered the crew to maintain course and let the pirates do what they wanted. The Seahawk, which was many feet up in the air at this point, had visual of the assault skiffs. The pilot wasted no time in calling in. He notified the crew of the hostile posture and the visible armament. And that was all the Navy needed. Because while most pirate encounters get the benefit of the doubt, this one has not only crossed the line, it has gone deep into the enemy's territory. To make matters worse for the pirates, a second Seahawk was launched. RHIB teams on the nearby destroyer USS Gravely geared up. On deck, Sea Whiz spun quietly into standby. The whole ship was calm, focused, and fast. But if the pirates thought they were waiting to be attacked, then they were grossly mistaken, and they were not waiting to be attacked because on a US aircraft carrier, hesitation is not protocol. Instead, it's a liability. As for the pirates, they had no idea that they were sailing into boiling water. From their own point of view, it was still just a big ship on the water. From the Navy's view, however, it was two threats closing in fast and everything was in motion. The pirates had no idea yet, but the warning shot was already locked and loaded, waiting to be fired. The skiff on the right didn't stop or change its course. It didn't even slow down. It just kept coming in with blind confidence, which was already bordering on stupidity. Having had enough, the Seahawk dropped altitude at 800 yards. Its side gunner swung the M240 into position, but there was no firing yet. The shooter simply took his posture. The posture itself was a not-so-subtle way of telling the pirates that they weren't welcome there. But did the pirates flinch? Number one of them even stood up, and with confidence, he held up something long and metallic over his shoulder. That's right, it was an RPG. And that was the trigger they needed. Hostility had been confirmed. Back on the Eisenhower, the captain didn't so little as to even blink. From the port side of the destroyer, two 11-meter RHIBs landed on the water. The vessels were packed full with Navy visit, armed to the teeth with whatever armor one can think of. These weren't diplomats, in fact, peace is not in their dictionary. These were literal floating SWAT teams with a license to not only act fast, but to also hit very hard. Maybe the pirates didn't know this, but the carrier itself didn't need to fire a single round. That's what the task force was for. But if things escalated, Sea Whiz turrets were already humming quietly. The radar was tracking the skiff like a hawk staring at a mouse in an open field. If the carrier fires a shot, the battle may be over before it begins. While all this was going on, the pirates moved into flanking position. It was like a losing chess game. Losing indeed, because one skiff was trying to fake out 2 warships and a helicopter. That's not exactly a winning strategy, if it was a strategy at all. Overhead, the Seahawk's gunner gave a final visual warning. He fired a burst across the water, just in front of the skiff's bow. That was a crystal clear message. It was at this time that the pirates reacted, but it was a bit too late. The RHIB was already on them. They had their engines roaring, cutting across the surf like a scalpel blade. They showed what a real strategy looked like when the first VBSS team boxed in the skiff from starboard and the second team blocked retreat from the rear. They yelled over the loudspeaker, asking them to lay down their weapons and to hands up. Confusion arose. The panic was so great that one pirate tossed his AK into the water. Another froze, and that was a smart choice. But the others had their own plans. The Navy did not waste time, though. In less than 30 seconds, it was over. Weapons were confiscated. The pirates were zip-tied and laid on the deck of the RHIB, with their skiff being towed behind. Security had returned to the sea. But what was Eisenhower doing this whole time? The large carrier never stopped moving. Not even for a second did it slow down a little bit. Because aircraft carriers don't need to handle every threat themselves. They bring an entourage that fights back harder. It was at this point the pirates realized they'd messed up. Not only did they pick the wrong ship, they had the misfortune of picking the wrong ocean as well. They were zip-tied, disarmed, and found themselves staring at deck boots. But the Navy was far from. The thing is, when a move is made on a U.S. Navy aircraft carrier, even a small one, they don't just neutralize the threat. They investigate, document, and send a message. Because it's their belief that tomorrow's threat might have night vision, not just AKs. So while the VBSS teams hauled the suspects aboard the carrier, the second Seahawk flew a perimeter loop. The first Seahawk had done its job, now it was its turn. It was scanning thermal signatures, hull markings, even checking if that skiff had any sort of tech inside. GPS, sat phones, encrypted radio, any hint that this was more than just a bunch of amateurs. And it turned out it wasn't just some slapdash pirate crew. Back on the Eisenhower, the mood was still business. The carrier hadn't even broken formation. It hadn't missed a single step. The catapults were still launching FA-18 Super Hornets into the sky. The deck crew hadn't even batted an eyelid. If anyone was there, aside those involved, they wouldn't even know an intercept had happened unless they looked at the radar logs. And that's the thing about carriers. They don't flinch. They have no reason to. Because while pirates are out here chasing money with leaky motors and RPGs, the U.S. Navy is running a staggering 100,000-ton nuclear-powered fortresses capable of launching jets every 30 seconds and directing regional security across half the globe. But there's a twist here. Remember the second skiff? The one that veered off early? It turns out that one didn't get away either. A drone quickly spotted about 6 nautical miles out, idling near a fishing vessel that looked a little too clean to be hauling tuna. It took only a few minutes for that vessel to be swarmed by a different RHIB team from the USS Mason, another destroyer in the strike group. The result was that 2 more pirates were detained, 1 laptop was seized, and a whole bunch of questions that'll be answered in a classified tent somewhere in Djibouti. What started as a simple intercept had just peeled back a much bigger layer. But the funny part is that the original pirate crew still thought they'd attacked a normal cargo ship. That was right up until a U.S. Marine leaned over and brought them to reality. For anyone still wondering why a carrier is the worst target imaginable, here's what makes it untouchable. Here's how it is. Attacking a U.S. aircraft carrier is like bringing a butter knife to a tank fight. Except in this case, it's not just a tank. It's a floating tank capable of launching fighter jets and has its own zip code. These pirates thought they were chasing an ordinary cargo ship. But when they came face to face with it, what they actually found was the most heavily protected vessel on any ocean. First off, it should be noted that an aircraft carrier is never alone. If a pirate is just pulling up on a flat deck, he's actually pulling up on a carrier strike group, a tight formation of destroyers, cruisers, submarines, supply ships, helicopters, drones, and a sky full of fighter jets. It's basically a floating war city with a zero-patience policy. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower, for instance, is nuclear-powered, over 1,000 feet long, houses nearly 5,000 personnel, capable of launching fully armed FA-18s every 25 seconds. But that's all there is to the Sea Beast. Below deck, there are multiple hangar bays, maintenance shops, weapon storage, radar control rooms, intelligence centers, and that's not forgetting that it has its own internal police force. Yes, a police force on the sea. There's no inch of the ship that's not being watched, logged, and defended. Then there are weapons. The carrier has close-in weapon systems, also known as the Sea Whiz, which fires 4,500 rounds per minute. It's like a laser-guided meat grinder that doesn't ask permission. Then there's the one known as ESSM, Evolved Sea Sparrow Missiles. Anti-air, anti-missile, anti-whatever. Fast, accurate, and brutal. And one cannot leave out the MH-60R Hawk helicopters, EA-18G Growlers for jamming, or E-2D Hawkeye radar birds that can see farther than most nations even can. With this arsenal, how can one even sneak up on a carrier? If a pirate crew threatens to surprise a carrier, they get flagged, tracked, locked, and lit up before they can even pick up speed. But here's the shocking part. In this encounter, the Navy didn't even use a tenth of what they had. They could have launched drones, fired warning flares, scrambled jets, deployed Marine detachments, or, if it got bad enough, authorized lethal force within seconds. But they didn't need to, because the threat was so far beneath their response capabilities, it was almost laughable. To put it into perspective, a single carrier strike group can control airspace the size of Texas. Yes, the massive city of Texas. That means from hundreds of miles out, they know so much about attackers. They know who they are, where they're going, and what is being carried. If they let anyone get close, it's because they want to see what such a person will do next. And if what is done next looks even slightly hostile, the game ends before it even begins. The USS Dwight D. Eisenhower has been instrumental in fencing off attacks over the years. Recently, on 30th of December 2023, Danish container ship Maersk Hangzhou issued a distress call after coming under fire from 4 small ships commanded by Iranian-backed Houthi rebels from Yemen. Attempts were also made to board Maersk Hangzhou by force, while a contracted security team defended the ship. Dwight D. Eisenhower and guided missile destroyer gravely responded to a distress call from the container ship. Verbal commands were radioed to the Houthi ships, while helicopters from Dwight D. Eisenhower were dispatched. After taking small arms fire, U.S. Navy helicopters returned fire, sinking 3 of the 4 Houthi ships. There was no damage to U.S. equipment or personnel. In the process of responding to the distress call, gravely shot down 2 anti-ship ballistic missiles fired from Yemen. On 10 January 2024, the Houthis carried out more missile attacks against U.S. and U.K. ships. All projectiles were shot down by Dwight D. Eisenhower and other ships. On 12, aircraft from Carrier Air Wing 3 embarked on Dwight D. Eisenhower, participated in the 2024 missile strikes in Yemen against Houthi rebels. Tomahawk cruise missiles were fired by the cruiser Philippine Sea, as well as the destroyers Mason and Gravely, and the submarine Florida. So trying to pirate a U.S. carrier is not just reckless, it's literally asking to be tackled by an entire team when you're holding a water gun. And the Navy wasn't even done yet, because neutralizing the threat is only one step. The next step was exploiting every mistake the enemy made. So while the pirates remained in a steel room below deck, zip-tied and silently asking themselves why they did what they did, the Navy's intel teams were already dissecting the entire gear the pirates used. That RPG launcher was taken in and scanned for origin. The laptop. Everything was scanned, and the Navy was able to dig up quite a lot of information, because the Navy doesn't just deal with pirates, they study them. Hard. In the command spaces of the USS Eisenhower, the analysts were combing through everything they could comb through. Thermal footage, radio intercepts, power signatures, hull materials. Even the fuel cans got sampled for information. Of all these scratches and scabs, one strange frequency caught their attention. It somehow matched chatter previously intercepted near an illegal arms shipment from Eritrea. And just like that, a seemingly random pirate raid turned out to be part of a network, which meant the follow-up wouldn't be just an after-action report. It would be a real-time targeting package. 12 hours didn't pass before that data was already flying up the chain. CENTCOM, AFRICOM, coalition partners, intelligence fusion centers in Bahrain and Djibouti. The whole machine moved fast, because the next raid might not be with RPGs. Maybe they might come with drones next time, or smuggled man-pads. Or worse, the pirates may be unknowingly acting as bait for a deeper, hidden threat. And that's how the US Navy operates. Every small contact is treated like something to test, a potential distraction, or a prelude to something bigger. So instead of swatting flies, the Navy builds a map of the entire swarm. The pirates were just the beginning. After they were caught, the real work started. Navy teams began digging into the details. Drones flew new paths. Planners quietly said the 3 words that mean a big trouble. Target package confirmed. The sea looked calm again, but things had changed. The Navy was watching, and now so was everyone else. By morning, life on the USS Eisenhower was back to normal. Jets took off, people had coffee, and everything ran smoothly. But behind the scenes, a lot was going on. That messy pirate attack had set off a big reaction. Satellites moved. Strange messages were flagged. Even friendly ships nearby were warned. Because this wasn't just a warning to the pirates, it was a message to anyone else thinking about doing the same. A US carrier isn't easy to mess with.
They thought they could take on America's best? Think again. When cartel thugs aimed at a US fighter jet patrolling the border, they had no idea what was coming. The Voyager mission turned from routine to revenge in seconds. What happened next left the cartel scrambling for cover as military might rain down from above. This shocking showdown at the border has everyone talking. The cartel's daring move became their worst nightmare. The shocking border attack that changed everything. It started as a normal patrol mission along the US-Mexico border. An F-16 fighter jet cruised at 20,000 feet, part of increased security operations targeting cartel activities. The sun was setting over the desert landscape when something unthinkable happened. Cartel members, hiding among the rocky terrain below, opened fire on the American military aircraft. This wasn't just a few random shots. Intelligence reports later confirmed it was a coordinated attack using modified high-powered rifles and at least 1 heavy machine gun. The bullets had no chance of bringing down the jet, but the message was clear. The cartels were directly challenging U.S. military power. Border residents reported hearing rapid gunfire followed by the roar of jet engines as the F-16 swooped lower to identify the threat. The pilot, a decorated Air Force veteran with thousands of flight hours, immediately recognized the danger and executed evasive maneuvers while alerting command. Within seconds, the aircraft's advanced systems captured everything: exact locations, heat signatures, and even faces of those involved. The cartel members fled in vehicles, thinking they had made their point without consequences. They couldn't have been more wrong. This single act of aggression would trigger one of the most massive anti-cartel operations in history. Local news stations broke regular programming as the story spread. The attack represented an unprecedented escalation. Drug cartels had harassed Border Patrol agents before, even shot at police helicopters, but directly targeting a military jet was crossing a red line that would bring the full might of American power down on their operations. For years, cartels had operated with a certain level of impunity in border regions. That era ended the moment they fired on that F-16. Within hours, military vehicles began pouring into border communities, and residents witnessed more aircraft circling overhead than they'd ever seen before. Inside the fighter jet during the attack, the F-16 Fighting Falcon, one of America's most lethal fighter jets, was performing a routine surveillance mission that fateful afternoon. With a top speed exceeding 1,500 miles per hour and advanced weapon systems, it's a formidable aircraft designed for combat situations far more intense than border patrol. The pilot was monitoring cartel movement patterns when warning systems suddenly flashed inside the cockpit. Specialized sensors detected muzzle flashes from the ground below. Within milliseconds, the jet's defensive systems pinpointed the exact location of the attackers using thermal imaging and radar. The attack happened so quickly that most pilots would have barely registered what was happening, but years of intensive training kicked in immediately. The pilot executed a sharp banking maneuver while activating the aircraft's suite of surveillance equipment. The F-16's cameras zoomed in on the attackers, capturing crystal-clear images despite being thousands of feet in the air. These images would later prove crucial in identifying the cartel members involved. The aircraft's advanced radar system mapped the entire area, tracking vehicles leaving the scene at high speed. Meanwhile, the jet's electronic warfare package secretly intercepted radio communications and cell phone signals from the panicking attackers below. All of this information transmitted instantly to command centers across the country. Military response protocols activated automatically. What the cartel didn't understand was that this wasn't just any aircraft. It was essentially a flying intelligence center with capabilities far beyond what they could imagine. The F-16's onboard computers calculated trajectory angles of the incoming fire, confirming this was a deliberate attack rather than random shots. Even as the pilot maintained perfect composure through evasive maneuvers, the aircraft's systems were building a comprehensive intelligence picture that would prove devastating to cartel operations. The entire engagement lasted less than 3 minutes, but the consequences would echo for years to come. The cartel's fatal miscalculation. For years, the Sinaloa cartel had been expanding its control over key border crossing points. Recent leadership changes had brought more aggressive commanders to the region, ones who believed intimidation could push back against increased American border security. Their plan to fire on a military aircraft seemed bold in cartel war rooms, a show of force to demonstrate their fearlessness. In reality, it was perhaps the worst strategic blunder in modern cartel history. The cartel leadership had fundamentally misunderstood American military response protocols. They expected perhaps increased border patrol presence or, at most, a localized law enforcement response. What they triggered instead was a full-scale military and federal operation with resources beyond imagination. Intelligence reports later revealed the cartel had been watching aircraft patterns for weeks. They specifically chose to target an F-16, thinking it was merely for show, a psychological intimidation tactic by American forces. This catastrophic intelligence failure revealed how little they understood about the aircraft's capabilities or the response such an attack would generate. Within hours of the attack, cartel lieutenants received frantic calls from senior leadership ordering immediate evacuation of safe houses and destruction of evidence. But it was already too late. The F-16 systems had mapped their escape routes, identified vehicles, and even captured biometric data sufficient for identification. Signals intelligence had already compromised their communication networks. Phone calls between cartel members revealed growing panic as they realized the magnitude of their mistake. What they intended as a bold message instead exposed their entire regional operation to unprecedented scrutiny. The cartel's decision to fire upon a U.S. military F-16 marked their greatest strategic blunder in decades. Believing they could intimidate American forces, they instead triggered an unprecedented response. Within hours, their entire operation faced the full might of U.S. military technology and intelligence capabilities. Their network of safe houses, smuggling routes, and corrupt contacts, built over years, was exposed in minutes by the aircraft's advanced surveillance systems. As military forces descended on their locations, panic spread through cartel ranks. What they intended as a show of strength became their undoing, revealing a fundamental misunderstanding of American military capabilities and resolve. The cartel had spent years building smuggling routes, corrupting officials, and establishing safe houses throughout the border region. In a single miscalculated moment, they had put all of it at risk. Even worse, they had united American and Mexican authorities against them in a way previously thought impossible, creating a perfect storm that would dismantle their operation piece by piece. The lightning-fast military response. The minutes following the attack on the F-16 triggered a security response unlike anything the border region had ever witnessed. Emergency action protocols designed for terrorist attacks activated instantly. The first wave of response came from the air. 4 additional F-16s scrambled from nearby Davis-Monthan Air Force Base, creating continuous air coverage over the border region. These aircraft carried advanced surveillance packages specifically designed to track fleeing vehicles and individuals. Within 30 minutes, Black Hawk helicopters carrying elite Army Rangers were airborne, heading directly to secure possible escape routes. These special operators, trained for high-risk missions, deployed in teams across the region using night vision and thermal imaging to detect any movement. Border Patrol rapidly established vehicle checkpoints on every road within 100 miles of the attack site. Meanwhile, Predator drones diverted from other missions created an unblinking eye in the sky, their high-resolution cameras capable of reading license plates from 20,000 feet. Coordination centers lit up with activity as intelligence from multiple agencies flowed in. Satellite imagery was retasked to focus on the region, providing real-time updates on vehicle movements across the rugged landscape. The speed and scale of the response overwhelmed cartel lookouts and scouts. Their usual warning systems proved useless against the military-grade technology suddenly focused on their operation. By nightfall, specialized equipment had tracked heat signatures into remote desert areas where cartel members sought refuge in previously secure locations. These hiding spots, never before compromised, suddenly appeared on military monitors as bright thermal outlines. When cartel gunmen opened fire on the U.S. fighter jet, they triggered a military response of unprecedented speed and scale. Within minutes, emergency protocols activated across multiple branches. 4 additional F-16s scrambled from nearby bases, creating continuous air coverage while Black Hawk helicopters deployed elite Army Rangers to secure escape routes. Border Patrol established checkpoints on every road within 100 miles as Predator drones provided unblinking surveillance from above. Satellite imagery was immediately retasked, tracking heat signatures across the rugged landscape. By nightfall, Special Forces had surrounded identified compounds, their thermal imaging equipment revealing hidden cartel members. The operation seamlessly integrated intelligence from dozens of agencies, creating a perfect dragnet. What normally would require months of planning unfolded in hours, overwhelming cartel communication networks and neutralizing their escape options before they realized the magnitude of their mistake. Communications intelligence units intercepted frantic messages between cartel members as they realized escape routes were being systematically cut off. Within just 4 hours, a complete security perimeter had been established around a 50-mile section of border. For the first time, drug traffickers faced not just law enforcement, but the full combined capabilities of the American military and intelligence community. The response sent shockwaves through cartel ranks as they realized they had awakened a sleeping giant. The massive cartel takedown operation. The pre-dawn raids happened simultaneously across 3 states. Months of planning compressed into hours as elite units moved on identified targets. The primary compound, a sprawling ranch 12 miles north of the border, had served as a cartel command center for years. At precisely 5:30 a.m., Special Forces operators breached the perimeter using tactics developed in Iraq and Afghanistan. Thermal imaging had already mapped every person inside the buildings. The main house fell without a single shot fired. Cartel members, still half asleep, found themselves surrounded by operators in full tactical gear. The evidence discovered inside stunned even veteran agents. Maps detailed smuggling routes across 4 states. Ledgers contained names of corrupted officials. Most alarming was a stockpile of military-grade weapons, including rocket-propelled grenades and anti-aircraft guns. Evidence the cartel had been preparing for escalated conflict. 15 miles away, a second team raided a warehouse that served as a distribution center. The operation yielded 2 tons of cocaine, 1 million fentanyl pills, and over 50 undocumented migrants held in deplorable conditions. Computer systems seized from the location contained financial records that would eventually lead to the freezing of over $50 million in cartel assets. The third target, an upscale suburban house in Phoenix, yielded the biggest prize: Francisco El Halcon Ramirez, regional cartel lieutenant responsible for border operations. His capture represented the highest-ranking cartel figure apprehended on U.S. soil in over a decade. Ramirez had been living in plain sight, his children attending American schools, while he directed violent operations across the Southwest. Pre-dawn raids struck simultaneously across 3 states, the culmination of intelligence gathered within hours of the fighter jet attack. At a sprawling ranch compound 12 miles north of the border, Special Forces operators breached the perimeter using tactics refined in Middle Eastern conflicts. Inside, they discovered an intelligence goldmine, maps detailing smuggling routes, ledgers naming corrupted officials, and military-grade weapons stockpiles. A secondary warehouse raid yielded 2 tons of cocaine, 1 million fentanyl pills, and dozens of trafficking victims. The biggest prize came at an upscale Phoenix suburb where authorities captured Francisco El Halcon Ramirez, the highest-ranking cartel lieutenant apprehended on U.S. soil in a decade. In total, the operation netted 43 cartel operatives, including 7 from the FBI's most wanted list. Evidence gathered revealed extensive plans for expanded operations across the Southwest. The raids effectively decapitated the cartel's regional leadership structure, disrupting operations for months to come. In total, the raids netted 43 cartel operatives, including 7 on the FBI's most wanted list. The evidence gathered painted a picture of an organization that had grown increasingly bold over years of operational success. Documents revealed plans for expanded operations, including targeting more government officials for corruption. The raids effectively decapitated cartel leadership across the entire border region, creating a power vacuum that would disrupt operations for months to come. The high-tech advantage that sealed their fate. What the cartel never comprehended was the technological gap between their operations and U.S. military capabilities. The F-16 they targeted wasn't just a fast airplane, it represented the peak of American reconnaissance technology. The moment bullets flew toward the aircraft, a cascade of automated systems activated. The jet's AESA radar instantly recorded the exact coordinates of the attackers, while specialized cameras captured high-resolution images of faces, vehicles, and weapons. These images underwent immediate processing through military-grade facial recognition software, matching against databases of known cartel members within seconds. Heat signature analysis identified the specific weapons used by their thermal output patterns. Even more devastating was the electronic warfare package aboard the F-16. Without their knowledge, the cartel members' cell phones, radio communications, and electronic devices were compromised the moment they came within range of the aircraft. Every call made after the attack was recorded and analyzed by artificial intelligence systems that matched voice patterns to known cartel figures. This signal's intelligence proved particularly damaging, as panicked cartel members inadvertently revealed locations of safe houses and names of associates. Satellite technology retasked to focus on the region provided continuous monitoring of all movement in a 100-mile radius. When suspects fled in vehicles, these satellites tracked them to previously unknown locations, expanding the intelligence map of cartel operations. Military-grade drones with thermal imaging capabilities identified hidden underground bunkers by detecting subtle temperature differences in the desert floor, revealing storage locations that had evaded detection for years. Perhaps most impressive was the data fusion happening behind the scenes. The cartel's fundamental miscalculation was underestimating American military technology. The F-16 they targeted wasn't merely a combat aircraft, but a flying intelligence center. The moment bullets flew toward it, advanced systems activated. AESA radar pinpointed exact coordinates, while specialized cameras captured high-resolution images instantly processed through military-grade facial recognition. Heat signature analysis identified specific weapons by their thermal patterns. Most devastating was the electronic warfare package that silently compromised all cartel communications within range. Cell phones, radios, and electronic devices became intelligence assets, with AI systems matching voice patterns to known cartel figures. Satellite technology retasked to the region provided continuous monitoring across a 100-mile radius. tracking fleeing vehicles to previously unknown locations. Thermal imaging drones detected underground bunkers by identifying subtle temperature variations in the desert floor. This technological overmatch meant the cartel was effectively defeated the moment they fired their first shot, though they wouldn't realize it until raids began. Artificial intelligence systems combined information from dozens of sources, from border sensors to financial transactions, creating a comprehensive picture of cartel operations that would have taken human analysts months to compile. This technological overmatch meant the cartel was effectively defeated the moment they fired the first shot, though they wouldn't realize it until raids began. Border communities celebrate new freedom. For residents of towns along the border, the massive anti-cartel operation brought an immediate sense of relief that quickly turned to celebration. Communities that had lived under the shadow of cartel intimidation for years suddenly found themselves free from fear. In Eagle Pass, Texas, residents gathered spontaneously in the town square as news spread of the cartel leaders' arrests. Many brought photos of loved ones lost to cartel violence over the years. The atmosphere shifted from solemn remembrance to joyful hope as people realized the reign of terror might truly be ending. Local businesses that had been paying protection money immediately noticed the absence of weekly cartel collectors. Restaurant owners reported record crowds as families felt safe dining out after dark for the first time in years. Parks that had stood empty due to safety concerns suddenly filled with children playing. School attendance jumped dramatically in the days following the operation. Principals reported that students who had stopped attending due to safety concerns suddenly returned to classrooms. Teachers noted improved concentration from children no longer distracted by fear. After years living under cartel shadows, border communities experienced immediate transformation following the massive military operation. Residents spontaneously gathered in town squares as news spread of cartel arrests. Local businesses no longer faced weekly extortion payments. Parks, once empty due to safety concerns, filled with playing children. School attendance jumped dramatically as families felt safe again. Restaurant owners reported record crowds as people ventured out after dark. Property values increased 30% within weeks as families who had fled returned home. Tourism rebounded to pre-cartel levels, revitalizing local economies. After years of darkness, these communities finally experienced normal life without constant fear and intimidation. The psychological impact rippled through every aspect of community life. Mental health professionals observed an immediate decrease in anxiety-related symptoms among patients. Community events that had been canceled for years due to security concerns were hastily organized. Weekend markets returned to town squares, and evening church services resumed their normal schedules. Perhaps most telling were the property values. Real estate agents reported a 30% increase in home prices within weeks as families who had fled began returning to the region. Tourism, which had collapsed under cartel violence, showed immediate signs of revival. Hotels reported bookings reaching pre-cartel levels within a month of the operation. The economic impact spread beyond tourism as legitimate cross-border trade flourished without cartel interference. Unemployment rates dropped as businesses expanded operations no longer hindered by extortion or violence. After years of darkness, border communities began experiencing something that had seemed impossible: normal life without the constant shadow of cartel intimidation. The unprecedented international cooperation. The attack on an American military aircraft created a diplomatic situation unlike any before it. Mexican officials, often hesitant about joint operations that might appear to compromise sovereignty, responded with unprecedented cooperation. Within hours of the attack, Mexican special forces secured the southern side of the border, preventing cartel members from escaping into Mexico. This marked a dramatic shift in cross-border relations. The Mexican government deployed naval vessels to patrol coastal escape routes while providing access to intelligence networks that had infiltrated cartel operations years earlier. Mexican military helicopters joined American aircraft in maintaining aerial surveillance of remote areas. This coordination extended beyond military operations. Financial investigators from both countries worked together to freeze cartel assets across multiple banking systems. Mexican prosecutors fast-tracked extradition requests that normally would have taken months or years to process. Behind this shift was growing recognition in Mexico City that cartel violence had reached unacceptable levels. Recent attacks on journalists, politicians, and civilians had pushed public opinion strongly in favor of decisive action. Economic factors also played a major role in this cooperation. Tourism, a critical sector of the Mexican economy, had suffered badly from cartel violence. Business leaders had been pressuring the government for stronger security measures that would restore international confidence. The diplomatic breakthrough extended beyond immediate security operations. New agreements established permanent joint intelligence centers along the border where agents from both countries could share information in real time. Training programs allowed Mexican forces to access American technological capabilities previously unavailable to them. Perhaps most significant was the political messaging from both governments. Rather than the typical finger-pointing about who was responsible for drug trafficking, leaders emphasized shared responsibility and mutual benefits of cooperation. This new framework survived even political transitions, suggesting a fundamental shift rather than temporary alignment. International observers noted this cooperation could become a model for other regions facing transnational criminal organizations. The United Nations Office on Drugs and Crime sent representatives to study the new operational framework for potential implementation elsewhere. What began as a response to an attack evolved into a new paradigm for international security cooperation. The justice system's overwhelming case. The federal courthouse in San Antonio transformed into a fortress as the first cartel members appeared for arraignment. The evidence assembled against them represented one of the most comprehensive criminal cases in American history. Prosecutors unveiled a 350-page indictment containing charges that went far beyond the aircraft attack. The foundation of the case came directly from the F-16's recording systems. High-definition video showed cartel members firing on the aircraft from multiple angles. Advanced audio filtering isolated their voices, providing identification that would prove impossible to dispute in court. Ballistic evidence retrieved from the scene matched weapons found in subsequent raids. Digital forensics teams recovered deleted messages from seized phones and computers, revealing planning discussions that stretched back months. The case expanded far beyond the initial attack. Financial records discovered during the raids exposed complex money laundering operations involving seemingly legitimate businesses across 5 states. Customer lists from drug operations implicated corrupt officials who had protected cartel activities for years. Human trafficking victims provided testimony about their experiences, adding charges that carried additional life sentences. The most damaging evidence came from cartel members themselves. Facing overwhelming evidence and potential life sentences, 7 mid-level operatives agreed to testify against their superiors in exchange for reduced sentences. Their insider testimony revealed organizational structures, financing methods, and connections to international suppliers. Federal prosecutors assembled the case methodically, creating airtight connections between physical evidence, digital records, and witness testimony. Legal experts described it as leaving no room for reasonable doubt. The broader impact on the justice system extended beyond this single case. New precedents were established for using military-grade intelligence in civilian prosecutions. Evidence-gathering techniques pioneered during the operation became templates for future cases against organized crime. Most significantly, the case rebuilt public confidence in the government's ability to confront powerful criminal organizations and win decisively. The trials themselves became a national spectacle, with media coverage highlighting both the sophistication of cartel operations and the even more impressive capabilities of American law enforcement. The new era of border security. 6 months after the attack, the border region had transformed beyond recognition. What began as a response to a single incident evolved into a complete reimagining of border security. The visible changes were immediately apparent. New observation towers equipped with advanced radar systems now detected unauthorized crossings miles before they reached American soil. These towers, linked to artificial intelligence systems, could distinguish between wildlife migrants and potential smugglers based on movement patterns alone. Underground sensors detected tunnel digging operations that would have gone unnoticed before. Aerial surveillance became constant but nearly invisible. New ultra-quiet drones could remain airborne for days, their high-resolution cameras covering vast areas without being detected from the ground. These drones operated on artificial intelligence systems that identified suspicious behavior and alerted human operators only when necessary. Perhaps most significant was the shift toward intelligence-driven operations. Rather than reacting to cartel movements, authorities now infiltrated their command structures through digital means and human sources. This proactive approach disrupted operations before they began. The economic impact spread throughout the region. With cartels on the defensive, legitimate cross-border commerce flourished. Wait times at legal crossing points decreased while trade volume increased by 15%. Border communities reported declining unemployment as businesses returned to areas previously considered too dangerous. The psychological effect extended far beyond the border itself. National polls showed American confidence in border security reached its highest point in 2 decades. Tourism to border states rebounded sharply, with visitors no longer deterred by fear of violence. Property values in previously cartel-dominated areas jumped significantly as safety improved. Law enforcement agencies nationwide adopted lessons learned from the operation. New technologies and tactics proven effective against cartels were implemented in jurisdictions facing gang activity or organized crime. Training programs incorporated case studies from the operation. The most telling indicator came from the cartels themselves. Intelligence sources reported groups shifting operations away from the border, focusing instead on less defended routes through the Caribbean. Their myth of invincibility shattered by the overwhelming response to their biggest tactical error, the day they decided to fire on an American fighter jet. Thanks for watching another episode. While you are still here, make sure to click on the video on your screen for more quality content.